Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining me. Either good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. I really appreciate the fact that you've taken time out of your busy day to attend this webinar on how to combat negative thinking and build confidence in yourself and in your insurance career or advising career. I promise that this valuable time of yours that you're spending with me will be well worthwhile, because not only will you learn some things here that you can use in your career and for the rest of your life, but there's also some freebies I'm giving away and some goodies that you'll find out about at the end, which will really change your life, including a copy of my book for free. So would it surprise you to know that 93% of insurance providers, producers, and financial advisors surveyed report that they have medium to high levels of stress almost all the time, and a full 40% of them say that their stress levels are comparable to post-traumatic stress syndrome, especially when they're doing prospecting and dealing with competition and some of the other difficulties on the job. Would it surprise you to know that the washout rate among insurance producers is huge? Of course you know that. And as renowned basketball coach John Wooden once said, failure isn't fatal, but what is fatal is failure to change. And what I'm going to teach you today are some ways that you can make easy to learn changes that will make a huge difference in your life. Not only in your life, obviously in your career, but everything I teach you can take place in other parts of your life as well as your career. So you see my email address, you may want to write that down. You see my phone number, you may want to write that down, because I'm going to provide everybody who's listening today to a free phone consultation with me. So that's the phone number to call and leave a message with your name and number, and I'll call you back. Well, it may be surprising to know that stress you feel in your career is not caused by any of these things. It's not caused by failure to hit your numbers or the pressure to produce. Surprising, right? It's not caused by the constant need to prospect for new clients. It's not caused by direct sales from carriers via the internet. It's not even caused by the competition. So that may be very surprising to you. You may wonder, well, then if that's not what causes it, what does cause it? We will get to that, I promise. So how do you know if this webinar is perfect for you? Well, let's look at some questions. Do the demands of your job feel overwhelming at times? Does the stress level increase with the thought of prospecting, of quotas and things of that nature? Do you blame yourself for your lack of success? Do you constantly compare yourself with your colleagues? If any of these things are true, then obviously this seminar is for you, especially if you sometimes debate whether you really want to stay in this career or not. Then this workshop is perfect for you. Let's go over what you learned today. How does my training differ from the training that you usually get in sales training? We're going to talk about that in a minute. What really causes all of your job-related stress? I'm going to teach you 3 steps to healthy self-talk, and I'm going to teach you 5 steps to self-confidence. Now, doesn't that sound great? I'm also giving you some bonuses at the end. You're going to learn about my unique client event, which is called How to Live Much Longer Than Your Kids Hoped You Would. That's a tongue-in-cheek title for a very serious subject, the psychology of life extension. This can drive a ton of new clients directly to you, and you can find out about this later in the workshop about that client event that's been very successful around the country for me to come right to your practice and produce that for you. Bonus number 2. Obviously, you can't learn everything in a 1 hour or 40-minute webinar, whatever this is. So I have developed an online course, a 6-module online course that you can actually earn 12 continuing education credits for, plus get a major discount if you sign up for this in the next 5 days. With my game-changing e-course, How to Quickly Develop the Mindset of a Champion Insurance Producer and Advisor. This is a game changer. There's no other course like it. You need the continuing education credits anyway. I'll tell you where you can find out more about that later, but I'm not going to spend time selling my course or anything like that. I'm just showing you where you can get this information. And bonus number 3 will be a free consultation with me. Who wouldn't want to do that? Even my wife would like to have a free consultation with me. So that is available for you today. And will learn all of these things. My job is to really teach you how to release the shackles, the psychological shackles that you've had on yourself so that you haven't been able to live up to your potential. These are based on self-limiting beliefs that we'll talk about that have prevented your ability and your potential for coming out consistently. And that's really the key. It is for athletes and it is for insurance producers. It is for financial advisors. You're all gifted as far as I'm concerned. But what keeps you from really living up to your potential are these self-limiting belief systems and shackles that you've put on yourself. And this seminar, this workshop is aimed at teaching you how to stop doing that. Now, for those of you who don't really know much about me, you haven't attended one of my workshops on Insurance WebEx before, one of my webinars, let me just tell you a little bit about me. I am not a financial services or insurance person by background. I am a professional sports psychologist. 37 years working with Olympic gold medal winners and teaching people how to develop a winner's mindset and release the potential so that they can perform their best consistently. In 2008, I pivoted my career. Remember what was happening in 2008? The economy was tanking all over the world. People were getting frightened. The markets were crashing and very volatile. And I received a phone call from the head of the Australian Financial Advisors Association. I didn't know much about the financial services industry then, but this person had been reading my articles on stress mastery. And so he asked if I could help his advisors who were thinking about getting out of the business, not only because of the world economy, but at that time, the government of Australia was also mandating fee for service. So fee for service meant that the commissions would be hidden and so forth. And therefore, it really became an issue. And I said, sure, let me research this a little bit and I'll do a video series for you on reducing stress. That's what pivoted my career. I then turned from working with professional athletes and elite athletes, college athletes, and so forth, to teaching the same dynamics to financial professionals like yourself. And it's been really an epiphany for me because I think all of you are the same as elite athletes. You just have to uncover that potential and recognize the psychological obstacles that are getting in the way. My passion is to help insurance producers and financial services professionals to bring their A game to the table every day. By the way, I am an author, and one of my books is the Financial Advisor's Ultimate Stress Mastery Guide. If you stick around till the end, I'll show you how to get a complimentary copy of this game-changing book. There's nothing else like it around, but I want everyone to have access to it, and I'll explain how you can get this at the end of the webinar, so stay tuned. I help producers and advisors through not only my webinars, but I do workshops and conference keynotes at advisor and insurance conferences. I come to insurance companies and to brokerage firms and do training there. I have a private confidential coaching system and my game-changing 12 continuing education online course entitled How to Quickly Develop the Mindset of a Champion Financial Professional, which I told you about. And we'll learn a little bit more about that later. But my goal here is not to upsell you to things, just to make you aware of these things. Remember, as we go along, you can submit questions through the Q&A. And I'll try to get to them. I do have a lot of material I want to give you, but I want to get to those questions. And any questions that I don't see in the Q&A today, you can certainly email me afterward. I'll answer questions. You can call, leave a message. I want to make sure you get all of the information that you need. Now, let's begin with an actual client of mine. We're going to call him Steve. It's not his real name, but that's what we're going to call him for anonymity purposes. Steve was actually ready to quit the insurance business. He'd been challenged in his career for many years, and he was eventually referred to me. But he was just about ready to quit the business when he was referred to me. He actually handled 4 of the 5 basic challenges that are inherent in his insurance sales career. He was pretty good at putting time into marketing and prospecting. He made contacts and set appointments and was very good about that. He was good at fact-finding. He was a grinder. He was comfortable handling objections. What he couldn't do, though, was he couldn't close sales. He was struggling. He was also discouraged because he wasn't as successful as one of his office colleagues named Michael. Steve said he put much more time and sweat into the business than Michael seemed to, but Michael's book of business and new referrals grew much faster than Steve's. Steve felt like a failure. He felt helpless. He didn't know how to right the ship. He was constantly engaged in negative, self-defeating conversations in his head. He didn't know what it would take to make him more successful. The most important discovery that I made with Steve was that he was constantly beating himself up with self-talk that was self-defeating. We all do this from time to time, but we're not aware of how powerful that can impact us. And so we'll learn how Steve overcame this issue and catapulted his success a bit later in the webinar. Now, how does my training that you're going to get right now differ from traditional sales training, which focuses on skill sets for things like prospecting and handling objections, closings, and so forth? That's the typical training that you get. My training is different because the typical training ignores how to develop the mindset, which is just as necessary, if not more so, than the skill set necessary for success. Here's a formula that I want you to realize is so important in your whole life. Your performance in anything, whether it's sales, golf, dealing with your teenagers, whatever it is, your performance will always equal whatever talent you have for that performance, plus knowledge, plus your skill sets and experience. But now there's a big minus here, minus distractions. And the number one distraction is this negative, toxic self-talk that we all fall prey to almost all of the time. And my goal here is to give you information that will be memorable and repeatable that you can put to immediate use in your career about the mindset. And the other things that I'm going to give you, the complementary things, are going to be just extra icing on the cake for you. Well, as I said, it all starts with the mindset. This is one of the most researched psychological factors that, in terms of the cause of stress, that there has been in the field of psychology forever. And it's that we all have a mindset that can lead to success or failure. As I told you, sales success equals your talent, your experience, your product knowledge, minus internal distractions. So your mindset is determined by whether you can take charge or control these internal distractions. That's the key. Your self-talk will set you up for either success or failure. The choice is really yours. If you talk to yourself in positive, healthy ways, that sets you up for success. Think about an athlete. If an athlete goes into a performance and says to him or herself, I can do this, I'm ready, I'm excited, I'm motivated, I'm ready to go, that sets that person up for the mindset for success. But if the athlete gets into the game, begins the game or event and says, I'm not sure, I don't feel that great today, my competition is strong, they look like they're more confident than I am, anything like that will immediately sabotage your performance so that you can't perform up to your ability. Your thoughts always lead to your actions, and your actions always lead to your results. And it all begins with your belief patterns. Are they toxic or are they healthy? Let's take a look. Iceberg beliefs. These are beliefs, they're actually toxic beliefs. Let me see if I skipped one for you here. No, that's it. Okay. These are beliefs that are toxic, that we call them iceberg beliefs because they're below the surface. You're not consciously aware that you have these beliefs, and they lead to these negative attitudes. So these are beliefs that a lot of people have from the time they're very young, like I need to be perfect, or I consider myself to be a failure. That we call that all or nothing thinking. Or I need to be liked by everyone or I'll fail. Or I'm really not as good at this as everyone thinks I am. Or any belief or thought that starts with the phrase, what if? That's devastating because anything that follows what if is almost always going to be followed by something negative. Or I need to fly under the radar and not make waves. or I need to avoid confrontations. Are some of these sounding familiar to you? I'm sure they are. All of these are common iceberg beliefs sitting below the surface. Very rarely are we aware that we have them, but we need to bring these up to the surface so that we can understand and recognize what these are. Now, here's some of these self-talk beliefs that lead to the attitudes of toxic attitudes and negative attitudes, of feeling a lack of control or low self-esteem or overwhelmed by failures. That's what these beliefs will lead to. I can't control anything. I don't really feel good about myself. I'm overwhelmed by my failures. I feel hopeless and sometimes helpless about the future, and I'm always having pessimistic expectations about the future. These are many of the problems that lead to people not doing well in their belief systems. And remember, we talked about all of the things you think might cause job stress, but it's not those things that cause the job stress. What really causes your job stress are your negative conversations you have in your head about not hitting the numbers. Not the hitting the numbers issue, but the conversations. The negative conversations you have in your head about your constant need to prospect for new clients. The conversations, the negative conversations you have in your head about direct sales from carriers via the internet. And the negative conversations you have in your head about your competition. All of these things, it's not the issue. It's not the issue that causes your stress. It's the conversation you have about the issue. That's one of the more remarkable findings in the field of psychology that's come down the pike in the last 50 years. That issues in your life, like not hitting your numbers or direct sales from the internet or your competition or what have you, those are issues, they're neutral. They don't cause stress, they don't cause happiness, they don't cause anything. But what causes your difficulty or your success is what you say to yourself about those issues, the conversations you have inside your head about those issues. That's what we need to take charge of and control. We're going to learn how to do some of that today, but obviously it's much more extensive than I can give you today. You'll learn more about that in the book that I'll give you for free, and certainly you'll learn all about how to do that if you wind up taking my course. That goes into much more detail, teaching you how to do all of this. Now, what are the psychological factors that lead to either success or failure in your business? This is really up to you because you can change these things. This is not part of your DNA. You're not, in trouble because of this. These are things that you can actually change. Your willingness to recognize the negative conversations that you have in your head, your desire to change these unfortunate conversations, which hopefully you have or you wouldn't be here, your desire to recognize and modify the self-talk habits that you start to learn about, and your desire to learn and remain mentally tough whenever negativity seems to creep in. Some of you have seen my other webinars know that we do one on mental toughness. We won't be able to touch on that much here, but it is in the course and in the book, and you can call me with any questions you have. And I'm going to move the camera a bit to see my last slide. Your willingness to keep your attitudes positive even during setbacks. That's really important. Think about an athlete who has an unfortunate happening, a golfer who hits the ball into the water. Are they done for the day or do they need to bounce back from that setback? When you have a client who cancels an appointment, are you done now? Are you finished, or can you bounce back from this? That's the key to championship level performance. It's the ability to bounce back, to take your A game again, even if you've had a disappointment, and not get overwhelmed by that. Well, let's talk about healthy self-talk. What attitudes does healthy self-talk or nutritious self-talk lead to as opposed to toxic self-talk? Well, healthy self-talk leads to a feeling of control, a feeling of high self-esteem. You can embrace mental toughness, use it all the time. You can feel hopeful. You can have optimistic expectations. One of my other webinars is about optimism and pessimism and how important that is in terms of you being happy and content and successful. And we know that having optimistic expectations thinking positively about what's going to happen as opposed to going in gun shy and thinking negatively can have a huge impact on your success. Again, optimistic versus pessimistic. How to develop that is the subject of another webinar. It's also fully explained in my course. So we want to have healthy self-talk so we can feel hopeful instead of helpless and hopeless. We want to embrace mental toughness so we can bounce back from setbacks. We want to feel in control. We want to raise our self-esteem, and we'll talk about self-confidence later today. And we want to have optimistic expectations. Let me take just a minute to see if there are any questions. Just type in on the Q&A if there are any questions at this point. Type in the Q&A if you can even hear me. That would be good. I did one of these once and never had the microphone turned on, but hopefully you're hearing me. Good. Thank you for telling me that, Gerard. I appreciate it. So let's talk about 3 steps to ultimate success in your business and in your life. Now, why do I say in your life? I say in your life because everything that I am talking about is translated not only for your business, but into your life on how to deal with your significant other, how to deal with your teenagers, how to deal with colleagues, how to deal with competition. These are life skills that I teach. That's why I developed a course so people could take it over and over again, you know, at one small cost, just keep taking it forever and develop some life skill changes that they can continue to use to enhance their life. And the feedback I'm getting is, this is not even of concern in my business anymore. This is helping me in my life in ways that you can't imagine, Dr. Jack. So that's what stirs my engine. You can change your toxic self-talk whenever you recognize a negative trigger. So a negative trigger thought is anything that's going to set you off to feeling anxious or worried or some other negative emotion, angry, frustrated. So here's an example of a negative trigger thought. If a client is short with me or cancels an appointment, it must be because of something I've done or something I didn't do. You can imagine how difficult that is if you say that to yourself. Or because I failed with this client, I'm afraid I'll keep failing. So step number 1 is to recognize these trigger thoughts, because for most of us, we leave these thoughts to continually linger and go on without us doing anything about it because we don't recognize them. Step number 2 is we need to stop these thoughts dead in their tracks. Here's how to do that. A number 6 rubber band, 64 rather, rubber band is the kind that comes in the mail. If you can see this, it's a thick rubber band that your mail gets wrapped up in, so they're free, or you can go to the store and buy a package of number 64 rubber bands, more than you'll ever need in your entire lifetime. You put it on your wrist. That's what you need to do. And as soon as you recognize you have one of these negative trigger thoughts, you snap the rubber band as hard as you can to really get your attention. You may have to snap it a few times because these thoughts are habits and they want to keep popping in your head. But the more you snap and the harder you snap, your subconscious mind will eventually not want to feel that little pain and will stop the thought. And at the same time you're doing this, you tell yourself, I need to stop these self-defeating, irrational thoughts right here. That's step number 2. Step number 1, recognize the trigger thought. Step number 2, stop those thoughts dead in their tracks. And step number 3 is the easiest and fastest way to calm yourself down from these negative emotions that came from that. You take a deep breath in through your nose, holding it for 4 seconds, and then a big exhale out through your mouth for 7 seconds. So we're going to breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds, hold it for another 4, then a big exhale out your mouth for 7 seconds. Let's practice it. I will count it off. Breathe in through your nose, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 2, 3, 4. Out through your mouth, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's right. That's how you do this. And that will cause your stomach to expand when you're breathing in and to contract when you're breathing out. And that is the most relaxing, calming way to breathe. Musicians know that, singers know that, and athletes know that. That's breathing through your diaphragm. It calms your whole body down. So let's review once again what the 3 steps are. Step number 1, whenever you recognize a toxic self-talk trigger thought, you need to recognize it first, stop it with the rubber band and telling yourself to stop these negative, self-defeating, irrational thoughts. And step 3, do some nice breathing. Now, does this take a lot of practice? Of course. But over time, your subconscious mind will recognize that there's going to be a snap of the rubber band and it will stop the thoughts first. It's the same as Pavlov's dog. You took introductory psychology. You remember Pavlov's dog? They sprayed food powder in its mouth and it salivated. After they rang a bell, pretty soon just ringing the bell brought the salivation. So pretty soon as you realize there's a rubber band on your wrist, you will stop the thought. And that's the first key to success. Any questions about this? Now, don't be afraid to ask questions. I won't identify your name. There's nothing like a silly question. People are afraid to ask questions because of that negative, toxic thinking that I don't want to seem stupid. How come I'm the only one who doesn't understand this? There's no such thing. Just feel free to put questions and I'll keep looking for them as I move on. What are 5 steps toward greater self-confidence? This is what it is. Always remember your past successes. This is really important because most people remember their past failures or the difficulties they've had or the challenges that they've had. They even have trouble going to sleep at night because they keep remembering something that happened during the day that they're upset about. What you need to focus on are your past successes. Close your eyes and recall, make it a video in your mind of your greatest success. I call it your visual highlight reel, like a video in your mind of the greatest success you've ever had. It could be a meeting you did, a seminar you did, a success in high school or college. But remember your best success. It could be athletic. It could be anything. It could be related to your job, the best success you've ever had on your job. Close your eyes and just have a video going on, reliving that in as much detail as possible. What were you doing? Who was there? What were the results? Were they clapping for you? Were they smiling? Were they shaking your hand? Did you have a client very happy with the service you provided? In as much detail as possible. So that's step 2. In fact, with my clients, with my personal clients that I work with, I make hypnotic recordings of these things so they can continually relive their past success and develop future success from that. Number 3, constantly fill your mind with positive affirmations as opposed to negative, self-defeating thoughts. Like, I genuinely care about my clients and I show them my care. They will always want to refer me because they know how much I genuinely care about them. These are the kinds of comments you can actually write down on 3x5 cards, have them near your computer, have them on the dashboard of your car so you can repeat them during the day. We need to fill our minds with positive affirmations. And if you have questions about positive affirmations, you can call me for the free consultation. We'll talk more about that. Then you need to visualize your future success as if it's already happened. So let's say you have a big, important meeting coming up where you're going to try to pitch your products to the school board, for example, for teachers. I say that because I wrote a book for teachers too, so I'm always thinking about educators and teachers. I want you to have your eyes closed when you go to bed at night and visualize tremendous success. Visualize them smiling because you're providing a service and a product for them that's very important and at a good price, and that they're very happy because now they know they'll be able to take care of their families. And some of them come up to you after and thank you for coming. They can't wait to get into this product. Visualize success. So many of us visualize failure, and that leads to failure. And finally, always reframe failure by changing your self-talk. So I gave you some examples before of things that that someone may say to themselves, which is a negative trigger thought. Let me go back to that and show you. If a client is short with me or cancels an appointment, it must be because of something I've done or didn't do. A way to reframe that thought is to say to yourself the following: this client is short with me, but there are many things that could be going on in the client's life that put him or her in a bad mood today. I'm not going to beat myself up over this. It may have had nothing to do with me. A second example, because I fail with this client, I'm afraid I'll keep failing. A way to reframe that. I don't consider this a failure. I consider this an unfortunate disappointment. The client may have not wanted this because of many reasons. It may not be because I didn't give the best example or I didn't pitch the product correctly. There are many reasons. I'm going to move on to my next opportunity. So many people linger on the past upset, but they need to move on to the next opportunity. The personal highlight reel, I want to go into a little more detail for you because it's so important. Recall your greatest success in detail. Visualize your next sales call as if you're wearing a helmet camera. Like there's a helmet camera that's going to see you walking into the room, shaking hands with the new client, prospective new client, just visualizing every detail of the sales meeting and seeing success at each step. That's what you're going to do for your future. Now, what did Steve do? Remember we talked about Steve. He thought it was a failure. He couldn't close any business. He just didn't know what was wrong because he couldn't compete with Michael, who was not working even as hard as Steve was. Well, Steve developed renewed self-confidence after I taught him how to take charge of his internal dialogue, after I taught him how to recognize the negative trigger thoughts that were getting in the way of his future. I also taught him this very important, valuable skill on optimistic expectations, on how to learn how to develop optimistic expectations regardless of what your past experience has been. And he learned how to gain the trust of new clients and has now been closing much more business. And by the way, he burst ahead of Michael. Nobody understood why, because nobody knew he was actually getting coaching here. That was obviously confidential, but Steve was always smiling because he was moving forward in a happy way and realized all he had to do was tweak his self-talk, and that's what made all of the difference. Now, how do you tie all this together? I call it the 3 R's for consistent success, and I call it your performance IQ. How do you tie this all together in terms of your performance IQ? The first R is recognize your toxic trigger thought patterns. Once you recognize them, and it's probably a good idea to write them down, then you can refocus your self-talk by choosing to think differently. You can use the 3 steps that I taught you with the rubber band and stopping the thoughts. You can stop setting yourself up for failure by eliminating these thoughts from your mind altogether and create new thinking habits. And you can re-energize yourself by having healthy conversations inside your head. Again, much more of this information I can give you if you want to chat with me about it in a free consultation. And certainly if you take the course, you'll get all of this that you can handle. So in summary, it's all about your mindset. It's all about the conversations that you have with yourself. The key is recognizing and eliminating the toxic thoughts and replacing them immediately. All it takes, ladies and gentlemen, is practice. I promise you that's all it takes is practice, and you can definitely do this. Everyone can learn how to do this. You'll be amazed at the results. Now, just a little bit about this course. I'm doing actually a 10-day sale from now into 10 days from now. There's a major discount for any of these packages for Insurance WebEx folks, and you'll earn 12 continuing education credits. You need the credits anyway, and this is a game-changing course. The way to find out about it is simply to go to developthemindsetofachampion.com, www.developthemindsetofachampion.com. You'll learn all about it, or you can email me for more information, and I'll give that to you. I talked to you about my unique client event directed at driving new clients directly to you. How to live much longer than your kids hoped you would. Do you think anybody wouldn't want to go to hear that? If you told your clients to invite guests that they're going to learn how to live much longer than their kids hoped they would from a nationally renowned psychologist who's an expert in life extension, you don't think that's going to pack the house? That's my unique client event. It works much better than a cheesy dinner where you're trying to sell them on some product or you're going to have someone speak about the future or economics. Boring. This is a lively, exciting webinar. I call it my mental wealth webinar that will teach them skills. I even give them a free copy of one of my books on dynamic health. And it's a powerful, powerful program. And the typical guest who comes says to him or herself, your insurance agent or producer thinks so much of his or her clients that they brought this nationally known psychologist in to teach how to live longer. My agent doesn't do anything like that. Maybe I need to rethink, either what I'm doing with my insurance or what I'm doing with my wealth management or what have you. It's a win-win-win. And many times there's no cost to you directly. Can you believe that? Many insurance providers that you use, whose products you sell, will be happy to sponsor this because it's a win for them, it's a win for you, it's a win for the client. It brings in new clients. So that's the other thing. Now, goodies for you. To receive a recording of this important webinar, and you'll have all the slides, you can go over it as many times as you want, or to schedule a complimentary confidential chat with me, or to order my complimentary book, The Financial Advisor's Ultimate Stress Mastery Guide, or to learn more about my unique client event. To do any of these things, simply email me at drjack, at advisingtheadvisors.com. My phone number, 949-481-5660. Or you can always visit my website, www.advisingtheadvisors.com. So now I've squeezed this all into a fairly short amount of time. What questions do you have? I'll sit quietly and wait for some questions to come across the Q&A. No questions. You mean I did such a good job that nobody has a question? That's kind of amazing, isn't it? You're still sitting there, but you don't have a question. Don't worry, no question is silly. I will address any question. Again, you can learn more about this in the course. You can learn more about this by contacting me directly. You can learn more about this from the book, which you're going to be able to get a free copy of, an e-version of that book that I'll send you by just sending me an email and saying you want the book, or send me an email and say you want to learn more about my unique client event, or send me an email and say that you'd like to schedule a complimentary chat with me, or send me an email and say you'd like to get a copy of the link for the recording link for this. Okay, so someone is asking, how do I stop avoidance behaviors? I don't know quite what you mean by avoidance behaviors, because that can mean almost anything. You mean you want to avoid things or you don't want to avoid things? Can you be a little bit more clear on that? Just type in a specific example. I'm not getting much of a response there. Avoidance behaviors, the avoid, oh, okay. How do you stop? Well, you're still not responding to avoidance behaviors, but if you're trying to avoid something like the wrong food to eat or something, there's a whole different skill set for that I can certainly teach you. So that's the only avoidance behavior I'm thinking of. Somebody wrote a question, would I vary the marketing to draw attendees to a Living Longer seminar than 10 or more industry-specific topics? Than to more industry. Yeah, the marketing would be different. That's a wonderful question, fabulous question. The marketing is, we have something special, we have something unique, we have a nationally renowned psychologist who's an expert in life extension going to teach you how to live longer and healthier, how to bring more years to your life and more life to your years. There's marketing help I can give you for that. And of course, if you have an insurance producer that may very well be interested in sponsoring this, they can market it as well. It's a win-win situation. Thank you very much for that question. Any others? Someone asked, is there any busy work instead of sales activity I should be doing? Well, the busy work that you can be doing really is teaching yourself how to recognize the negative self-talk, the trigger thoughts that get in the way. Get some help from me if you'd like to do that. But once you do that, your whole life will change. It'll change not only in your insurance business, it'll change in your life. And you'll be able to save a lot of your marketing time, because the sales activity is just robot stuff you're doing. But if you don't change what gets in your way, it'll never be okay. I'd love to find out how I can get an insurance company I use to pay for the course. Well, that's interesting. I haven't had anyone ask me about that, to pay for the course. If you do enough business with them, they may likely be willing to do that. And certainly I can work with that insurance company and give them discounts. If they want to pay for your course, I can give them discounts for all of their clients. I haven't even thought about that, but that's an interesting idea. Interesting idea. Thanks for bringing it up. Yeah, if you want to give me the name of the insurance company and a contact person, we can talk about that. The avoidance is doing busy work. Yeah, so many of us spin our wheels. This is the person who asked the question earlier. So many of us spin our wheels where we're just doing a lot of busy work, and it's not getting us anywhere. It certainly isn't worth it. Whatever hundreds of dollars you're worth an hour, you're wasting it. You really need to be focused on yourself and your mindset. If you spend your time doing that, everything else will fall into place. You'll sell more. You'll be happier, you'll have less stress, the whole 9 yards. The course will really teach you how to do that. Any other final questions? I really appreciate the fact that you've stayed with me this long. I know you have busy days. There's still a lot of you on the call waiting to hear other information. I will be able to close that call in just a minute. Any other questions? I'll wait for just a minute to see if there's another. Well, I don't see another question. So again, I thank you so much for attending this. It's been really a treat talking to all of you, to seeing your questions and your comments, and some of your funny comments has brought a smile to my face. Stay tuned and watch for further Insurance WebEx webinars that I'm doing. I do one every 3 months or so, and each time it's a different topic with the same core of what are we going to do for your mindset. So I want you to have a fabulous week, all of you, and start making it the best week by not falling back on your old habits, but by changing them, to start recognizing those trigger thoughts that are getting in the way, write them down, learn how to change them. Give me a call for a free consultation. I'll teach you how to do that. And at this point, I'm signing off. Thank you once again. I really appreciate it.